Hey guys, so today's video I'm just out exploring a little village called Purau, I think that's how you pronounce it anyway. And it's quite near the city of Christchurch in New Zealand. It's sort of across the bay. The bay is called Diamond Harbour. So this has a little bay in itself and a little village at the end of the bay there. And there's some nice yachts sitting on the water here, and it's quite a calm morning and in terms of the wind, so the water is quite flat and calm, so you get some good reflections. And it just showing here, I'm starting off at this little jetty here, and it's got a few boats sitting on it, lots of different colours, so I thought that'd be a great subject matter. It's really contrasty and adds quite a lot of interest to the foreground, and the primary colours really stand out against the natural colours in the background as well. So the first shot I took of this area, the sun is just starting to come up. It's early morning, so the sun's not quite up yet, but you're starting to see a little bit of colour, some oranges and things. So I'm just trying to get a shot with quite a wide angle frame on the composition, and just trying to get a sort of perspective of the lines from the sides of the barriers of the jetty, and narrowing in the centre where you saw a bit more of the yellow colour. And on the left hand side you have all the little contrasty sort of primary colours really popping out against them. Now at this shot I'm just trying to show how I approach a different location. So I'm trying to get some different angles of the same location and see how can I compose them differently to get a different kind of shot, but it's all got the same subject in the foreground. So in this one here I'm just trying to it's quite difficult to get a good angle here because of the way the edge of the path is here. But I'm trying to use the jetty as a leading line out onto the water, where you can see a few boats and see the mountains a bit more compared to the last shot. Also trying to use this kayak, you can see it sitting on the side, it's a white coloured kayak there. That's also quite a good contrast with that area of the composition because it's quite dark over there. So I'm trying to use that, it sort of pops out more and it gives it a nice leading line as well, off into the distance. I just spotted another shot here that might be quite nice, and it's with the yachts just sitting on the water, and the reflections are starting to pop up a bit more as this colour of the sky is starting to rise. So it's just a different shot here. It's completely different than what I've been focusing on, but that's the type of thing I try to look out for. You might be focusing on a certain thing and then try and keep your mind open to different shots that might be possible. Just wanted to include a little shot here of this bird. I think it's called a white-faced heron, and they're quite common in this part of the world. I think they're in Australia and New Zealand, and I think New Guinea as well. I just thought I'd show this little guy because you might not have seen one of them before. He seemed to be quite inquisitive what I was doing. So this next shot, I try and get onto the rocks themselves, and I'm trying to get a better shot of the mountains here. You can really see the scale of them a bit more here, and I have to use a longer focal length here just to compress the scene more and give the scale a bit more. So this next area, I've just come around the bay a bit more. You can see the jetty off to the left there, but there's this little river that's coming into the bay here, and the water on it's very still. So you get some great reflections, and as the sun's coming up a bit more now, it's hitting off those cliffs off in the background, so it's really popping the yellowy colour as it reflects off the rocks there. And I'm trying to use the still water in the foreground just to lead the eye into the centre of the frame, and you can see the light popping off the background. So I did take that previous shot on the bridge that goes over this little river, so now I've come down to the level of the river, trying to get much more low down, so you get much more reflections. As the lower down you go, the more you'll see in the reflections. Trying to use the rocks and the log in the foreground just as a bit more of a prominent feature, as it really sort of binds the image together a bit more, and gives the eye something to sort of lock onto. And then the reflections are just starting to get a bit nicer as the sun is starting to come up more and more. The sky's getting more colourful and more bright, and it really pops in the reflections on the water there. I'm just trying to use the rock. I'm trying to get a good angle with the log to the line of the log to really push the eye towards the back. But now I've just moved on from that bay up to the hills a bit more, and you would have seen these hills actually in the background in the last few shots, so it's not too far away. It's about maybe half an hour drive, maybe less than that even. And there's a few paths that go up into the hills. Just wanted to explore one or two of the paths and see if we can get some nice shots here. So as you can see, the sun has risen quite a bit more now, so it's above the hills and it's still not too high in the sky, so it's still a little bit of colour. And so this is the path here, and it goes all the way up. The rocks at the top is called the Monument. So this is just as I was starting the trek. You can see this little scene here. It's quite a good panoramic type of scene, and you got some really interesting light because of the way the rays are coming through the clouds here. And this type of shot maybe wouldn't be particularly interesting if the light was flat. Because of the way the sun's coming through the clouds here, it only catches some of the landscape in certain ways, so you get a lot more contrast between bright parts of the landscape and shadowy parts, which really helps to emphasize the scale of the landscape, and it draws your eyes in more, and it sort of helps show the distances between parts of the landscape. So you can see a few sheep in the foreground, and I'm also trying to get a shot of this little bay over here to the left, and also some of the hills in the foreground, because just the way the light is catching them, it's a nice and bright catch, and then the hills in the background nice and shaded. So the way that works out, it just really shows the distances between parts of the landscape. So these are a few of the tracks. You can see the sort of veiny, winding tracks going up the hill here, and they go off to different parts of the mountain. So we're going to head up this track and see what we can find. Just wanted to show you guys this little hut that I found on the way there. It's called Monument Shelter Hut. So you do have these huts around New Zealand. Some of them you have to book, and some of them you have to pay for. It just depends on the hut. Usually in mountainous areas, so you might have a multi-day trek and you sleep over in a hut on the way there and things. I'm not sure about this hut in particular, but I just thought I'd show you the inside of it. So you can see there's sort of 8 beds kind of thing, and the mattresses are made of straw, you can see in there. Sort of like a canvas material with the straw underneath. Maybe not the most comfortable, but I'm sure you could live with it. You can see on the wall there it says Possummer's Hut. So this might be used during a certain part of this year, at certain seasons. Maybe there's possum hunters or something, maybe want to stay here. I'm not 100% sure, but that may be what it's used for. This shot here is from the bottom of the hill, so just before you start climbing up towards the monument. I'm trying to get a few sheep in the foreground there, and it's some nice way the light's catching the middle of the frame there. I continued up the hill here towards the top. You can see a few clouds sitting on the tops of the hills here, so the visibility in certain directions wasn't so good, but it was still fine towards the actual monument itself. So now I'm at the top of the hill, right next to the monument rock itself. It's a really nice panoramic view from up the top. You can see the bay. That's where I started off at the beginning of the video. So you will have seen these mountains in the backgrounds of the shots I took down there. And you can see the sun's quite a bit higher in the sky now. You still have some nice long shadows, because it's quite hilly. You still do get some nice shadows here, and there's still a little bit of colour going on. Just going to round off the video now with a few drone shots and a photo towards the end as well. And I just want to say thanks for watching, guys, and I appreciate it if you liked the video, if you learnt a thing or two, or if you just enjoyed watching the video in general. And I appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Thanks, guys.